Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Market Trade Group, and today is Monday, August 30th. So we've got one more day of the trading month to go for the month of August, and we're on to September. Today's performance, well, before we get to today's performance, risk disclaimer in front of you, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. You could read the whole risk disclaimer here, and if the screen is a little bit blurry, it's because YouTube has not finished rendering the high definition version of the video. So today's performance, a lot of outperformance again by the NASDAQ. The Qs up 1.1% for the day. Very strong performance again. Follow through from Friday, where you remember Friday just about everything performed, right? We had a very strong breadth day. Today was a little bit different, right? So we'll get back to the Qs in just a second, but I thought it was interesting that the small caps, they declined over the session. They finished down 0.4%. Right, so of course, S&P chart. There's not much to kind of overanalyze here. We are breaking out. Are we a little bit extended and probably due for some digestion after this move that we saw basically now for off of this hammer bar, right? So this was not Thursday, the Thursday before. So since then we've made a really nice swing up here. So yeah, I would think that there's a little digestion next. Tomorrow is the last trading day of the month. So I put this data point out on Twitter earlier. You could see it here, but SPY performance, right? So I've talked a little bit about this from time to time. I talked about it in Sunday's macro video, and I actually added them up and averaged them. So every last trading day of the month in 2021, if you add them up and take the average, you have down your negative 40 basis points. Now, some of what I realized in looking at the data was that a lot of this phenomenon was mainly the first part of the year, not so much in the last couple months, but I still err on this side. And then, of course, when you take the first trading day of the month, that SPY performance is actually up 0.5%. So there's a difference of almost 1% there between the last trading day of the month versus the first day of the month. Why does this occur? Well, there's some, funds are closing up their books for the month, and maybe they're taking some profits and some things at the end of the month, and then the first day of the month they start all over and add trades back. So be mindful of that tomorrow. My personal opinion is, it's kind of the same thing for me. Like, I close my books, so to speak. I don't sell all my positions, but I do report my P&L every month. You see it on Twitter. You can go to my pinned link, and I do good or bad, I report the numbers, every month, and then I go over them with members. I send out a video about performance and what went right, what went wrong, things to improve on, and so forth. So I'll be doing that. I guess in the middle of this week. So I'll do that probably Tuesday after the close or Wednesday. Probably Wednesday once I have the official report from my broker. But so keep in mind, as we are getting a little bit extended here, it wouldn't surprise me at all that tomorrow would be a little bit more of a difficult day. We were talking about this in the trading room too, that these Fridays, the summer Fridays have been very good. The Mondays have been pretty decent too, but in the middle of the week we get a little bit of chop. So I don't make predictions, but if I had to, that's what I would expect. Here's the performance of the Qs. Again, very strong since that, not last Thursday, but the Thursday prior on, I'll give you the actual date, on 8/19, we've been rallying hard. So that, and there's outperformance there. Let's go over to I wanted to go over to the small cap futures chart. So we just basically have a little bit of a back test. So I wouldn't get that negative just because the small cap futures were down 60 basis points, because they were up 5% last week, which is a big week. You could see that 2302 VPOC in sight, and it could be where we're going in terms of taking out that level if we can kind of stay above. Notice as well that we only have one more trading day of the month too for the MarketWebs for the value area for the month of August, right? So we'll be on to a new value area for September. Again, it's still developing because it's crunching all the data so far in August. This market profile that you see shaded in here, that helps us draw the value area for the next period, which will be September. All right, so that's what we have kind of in the cards for the major averages. We could talk about some of the outperformance for the day, but it was a lot. I mean, look at the candle for Apple. Big day for Apple, up 3%. I don't know when the last time we've seen an Apple up 3% day before. I can't find any of these candles that have gone up that much. So that's a ginormous name for Apple. And if you look at the performance for the Qs today, or we could go to back to my spreadsheet. And I do have the FANG stocks down here. Apple was up 3%. Amazon was up 2.1%. Same as Facebook, up 2%. Google was the laggard today. I mean, but Google has been performing tremendously, so that doesn't surprise me for Google to take a day off. And Netflix is still going too. So I thought that this chart looked pretty good. Here's our weekend watch lists. This is what we put together for members every weekend. And not only did I put together the watch list and where the triggers are, and I actually had a lot of FANG stocks. They were kind of jumping out to me. So I had Microsoft on the list. I had Apple. I don't normally have normally I may have one FANG stock, but a lot of times I don't. And I had three of them. I had Facebook on here too. And so all three of those triggered today, with the winner being Apple. So not only do I put that up, but I also talk about sectors, where the relative strength is, what's trending. Certainly, we saw another big day for the medical device group. Continues to chug along. Strengthening groups I have here, and then of course I have the non-trending and the weaker groups. So yeah, and another name too, which I thought was interesting, was ISRG. I know this is a tough name to trade. It's a high price stock, but look at the digestion. And again, we went over all this in the weekend video, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 red bars there in ISRG. And, there wasn't a lot of volume on today, but that doesn't mean you have to give back the profits. So really nice move for ISRG. Again, it's a tougher name. I get it. Remember, they're going to have a stock split in a couple weeks. I think it's a 3-for-1 stock split, which will bring the name down. But what can you say about these medical device companies? Here's the medical device ETF. It just continues to be really strong. Take a look at a couple of these names. Now, this has been a big name that some traders have been trading in the room. INMD, which has just been out and up to the right. Also one that I took, and IHI, by the way, is one of our biggest weights in the TTG Trend Portfolio, right? We've had that now, and I bumped that up a couple months ago for it's either the largest or the second largest weight right now, because I did up the cyber ETF too last week. Which has also had a really nice run to it, up another 0.5% today for the cyber ETF. But another name, again, I always find it interesting, names that people don't talk about on Twitter, right? People love to talk about certain names over and over and over, like a Palantir gets talked about all the time, but nobody talks about this one. Charles River Labs just continues to methodically break out and move higher, right? Just like at FTNT, right? Nobody talks about these names. A few people now talk about Fortinet than they used to, but these names are just in beautiful trends. They just continue to go. What's this one too? IT, which was actually down a little bit today. This is another one, just continues to trend. Nobody talks about it. It's not as, look at Palantir is going to make the turn today and stuff. Listen, Palantir was on our watch list too. That stock went right up to a 1-hour VPOC, which is what I said on Twitter. If you saw my post about Palantir, is it's got overhead resistance, right? And this is the deal with overhead resistance, right? So took out this virgin point of control, and that was it. There's some sellers up here. So the MarketWebs, they give us a wonderful roadmap of what's ahead and where to take targets instead of being greedy. But again, everybody wants this name to move, and it's just not. So you can make all the predictions that you want to, but some of these names just continue to trend. So it just is what it is. Speaking of trending names, SE was a big winner for me. This name was up, I think, at one point about 4% for the day. So I took some profits in this one. Here's the trade blotter for me. Here's SE. This was a name I've been holding for a couple weeks. Again, I hold it in two places. It's a member of the TTG Trend Portfolio, have a much lower cost basis. So I continue to ride the trend in that one. And I added this one probably about, I think maybe the beginning of last week, just looking at this possibility that it could break to new highs, and it did it today. So I got rewarded and took some targets in that today. 334, 321 last week's cost basis. I did trade a little bit of Facebook today for a day trade, and shame on me for not sticking through it. Again, this was the weekend watch, one of the weekend watch list names, and it managed to close like on the highs today. It came off a little bit, but I sold this somewhere, I think, in here for the day. So when I buy weekly calls, that's sometimes how, if I get a nice mover, sometimes I'm out of them really quickly, and yeah, shame on me for leaving some money on the table for this one. But again, that's sometimes I'm out of weekly calls so quickly. Another name that I was watching today was Square. I did not get the trigger for this one, so what I did at the end of the day, so it's close, right? We saw a lot of option activity in this thing, some weekly calls, some a little bit further out, but it's got to break 270, 250. So if you're not in this one, you could write this one down. A lot of this game for me is about just setting alerts and then following the alert once it triggers. I went into some calls in the beginning of the day. I thought this one might really have a chance to have some momentum for the day. It didn't. So I took off the calls for a little bit of a loss, and I went into some stock, even though the trigger isn't there yet. So I may actually add on the breakout if we do get that, because I think that there's some potential, right, for this thing to kind of run maybe up to 278 and possibly back to new highs. We'll see. PayPal was also a big story of the day. Announcing that they're getting into trade stock. We did a great job with this one. We found the news pretty quickly, and this was a killer trade for me. Into some PayPal September 7th, 280. September 10th. I didn't buy this week's. I bought next week's calls for 315, and I got out of them at 635, so a double for those in like the matter of like 15 minutes, maybe even less. So where is this now? Again, sometimes when I take these quick, these trades that work very well and I'm out, then what I like to do is just kind of look to see if, hey, is this name just starting to move? Well, it's a little bit complicated with this chart because we ran into resistance, bottom of value for the month, but we're going to have a new value area in 2 days. So as long as we're above, somewhere around 280, I think that there's a chance for PayPal to keep going. Another way also to look at this too, and it's why I use both, I use the MarketWebs value areas, and I also use the moving averages a bit. You could also put on a trade here versus the 50-day moving average, right? And if it falls back below the 50-day moving average, then you get out of it. Right? That's just an easy trade. Again, no predictions. I don't make these predictions that I think where I think it's going to go. But if it can hold in here, I do think you have a chance to fill this gap. So that's what I would be looking for in a trade, right? I mean, it's tough to if you put on a trade, you have to make a little bit of a prediction where you think you're going to take your profits, where you think the stock could get to. But I'm not going to go out and say, hey, I think this gets directly up there. It's a risk to reward situation. And I think as long as you're disciplined and giving the stock back, selling it if it breaks back below the 50-day moving average, which I've gotten coming along the line right here. All right, so that's an interesting one. What else did I do for the day? Generac, I was out of this trade. Again, always with these hurricanes, and I'm glad that it sounds like I didn't hear too much about the storm today, but it sounds like it's downgraded to a tropical storm. You could see the candle on Generac, right? If you are kind of new to this, right? Always trading is buy the rumor, sell the news. I don't want to say always, but it's 90% of buy the rumor, sell the news, right? So for example, if you look at what Nat Gas did, right? Look at what it did leading up to the hurricane the last couple of days, right? It makes the move prior to when the hurricane hits landfall. Once the hurricane hits landfall, stuff starts to sell, it starts to give back the gains, right? So I took my Generac profits right on the open. In hindsight, I wish I was in straight up calls than a call spread, but you could see that the first couple 5-minute bars were the high of the day. All right, so that's Generac, and again, always is one of those names to play around hurricane time. Home Depot too was another name too. It's to a lesser extent. I'll be watching this Home Depot chart. It closed right at the top of value. We'll see if it can kind of get going. Home Depot is also a name in the TTG Trend Portfolio. Lowe's also opened on the highs and gave it back, finished down on the day. So that's a couple of the hurricane stocks. Couple of the steel names I was watching today. Nucor still finished up 1% for the day. I tried and I did go long this RS. Right, it did not close above value, so I'll have to pay close attention to this. But I do like how the moving averages are getting pretty coiled up here. Right, another name that looks pretty coiled. So I'm long this aluminum and steel name, and we'll see if it could get going above that coiling in the moving average as well as the top of value. Also, a name probably not on anybody's radar, but look at the coiling that's going on in the Cintas. Again, high price stock, but I like names in uptrends that are kind of coming into this 50-day moving average. I think that this is going to resolve itself pretty soon in terms of which way it wants to break. I'm guessing it's going to break to the upside. All right, so you could play a call spread in this. You could also play outright calls because I know the stock it's a higher priced one, but I would just personally play the stock. All right, a couple other names. I made this example this weekend about some of these high priced stocks that have gone up decently. Like Costco was one that we talked about on Friday in Friday's video. Take a look at Costco, right? Again, some people are like, oh, geez, I don't want to buy this up here. It's gone up so much. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, digesting from the highs into 448, 449, and look at it, up $5 today. Perfect little move back into the 20-day moving average and bounce, right? So again, it's not as sexy as some of the names that we heard about today. What was the one name? There's a few small cap names that got going today, and I get it. Like some of these names, you walk in and the stock could be up 30-40%, and you feel great. But I'm a little bit more methodical. I do view a certain amount of risk with those names. Like I can never take a big position. This was the one that saw a lot of call activity today. ZEV. So a lot of call activity in this one, and they're looking for a squeeze in this one. Let's see if it's trading anywhere above. No, not really moving too much. But we've seen one of these different names now, every couple of days. The other one was SPRT. These names do fall very quick, right? This thing hit a high of 59, back down to 36. So I get it. Costco and some of the other names I mentioned aren't as fast moving, but it's just a little bit easier to position some of these things that aren't going to move from one day, $50 down to 36 in the course of a day. So it's cool to play some of these things with the right position size, but you got to stay on these names every second because of the volatility that's associated with them. All right, so we'll leave it there for first day of the week video. Guys, have a great night. Really nice way to start the week. Locked in some profits, kept a couple trades on. One other trade that I took, probably the first trade that I took of the day, just really didn't do too much after I got into it, was Unity Software. Notice the VPOC takeout. It's been settling in here, and I'm looking for this thing to possibly extend. Let's see where this thing closed. Even tomorrow might set up because it just pushed back to the top of value. Right, I think there's a actually there's not a VPOC up here, so on the 1 hour chart. So again, may have some daylight ahead of it if it could get over this this 128.60 level. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.